What's up, guys? So today we got the Tacoma in the shop. I'm going to be installing a lift kit. So this is what it looks like stock with 32-inch tires. They're Falcon Wild Peaks. The lift kit is nothing fancy. It's a used kit that I basically got for free. It's just the spacers for the struts. You could see the difference between the new U-bolts or the aftermarket ones versus the OEM ones. And then this is the spacer that's going to go under the leaf spring. So I have it on the lift. I'm going to use this transmission jack. This side's already done. As you can see, the only thing that's different now is that this clamp or brace for the parking brake cable can't fit anymore. So I'll probably secure that with a zip tie or something. So I'm gonna support, I took the wheel off. I'm gonna support the axle or the whole wheel, brake assembly, whatever you want to call it. You know, if you're doing this on the ground, you could use a floor jack. I'm going to start with taking off the factory U-bolts. I think it's a size 19. So once that's off, the whole thing just pulls right off. It might be tight because of the dirt and grime, but you just pull it off. So the next thing that I did is I unbolted the bottom of the strut. That was a 19 also. And then the last thing I'm going to unbolt is the parking brake cable. Now that's out, I could lower the transmission jack and it'll create a big enough space for me to fit the spacer. There's a little nub on the bottom and the top that you just want to line up. You can kind of maneuver the whole axle by grabbing the brake drum. It's a little hard to do it while holding the phone, so bear with me. Then once you jack it up, it'll stay in place. I'm also going to jack it up enough for these to line up the bottom of the strut so I could get that bolt in. So now time to put in the new U-bolts, or the longer U-bolts. So I slid them on. I slid on the little base or perch or whatever you want to call it. So now time just to put in the washers and the nuts. Put some a little bit of Loctite and tighten it up, and I secured both sides of the parking brake cable with a zip tie. So now I guess this back is basically done. I can throw the wheels on here, and let's get to the front. The front is only slightly more complicated. Hopefully it's not too bad. There's a lot of components in the way of taking the strut out. So it looks like I'm gonna take off the sway bar link, the upper ball joint, and then hopefully the sway bar can move, and then I'll take off the tie rod, and then I'll bolt it from the bottom and try to slide it out. So I have the stuff off. Yeah, so I took off the upper ball joint. Then when you loosen the nut, if it doesn't come off, you just tap there on the spindle. Same thing for the tie rod here. Tap that with the hammer, came right off. That's the only thing you missed while I didn't record. Now I'm gonna go take off the other sway bar link on the other side and see if I can swing it. So it's loose, but the sway bar still doesn't move. But I got the strut assembly to come out. What I did was ended up unbolting the sway bar mount. So the front bolt is just in the slotted. So you could just loosen the bolt, and then the back one, remove it completely, and you could get the sway bar to drop, and then it has a decent amount of play. Now that's out, let's see if I could bolt in the spacer. It's pretty straightforward, just 3 bolts. Did that to both sides, and time for install. It's basically the same as removing it. Might be a little bit harder now because I have to compress the spring. We'll see. I'll just line up all the bolts and get everything hand tight, and then tighten it with the gun after. So everything's in. For the bottom bolt, it was a little hard. You just have to put some pressure on the lower control arm, push it down to get that bolt in. But that's not too bad. And then the upper control arm, you have to swing it down a lot, and then use the transmission jack or a floor jack to lift up on the lower control arm. To bring the upper control arm down, I ended up using this monster pry bar that I have here. It's pretty long, so it didn't take that much effort. I had loosened this is the ABS sensor. I took it out of this clip, but I think it could stay there. The extended height is not going to affect it. The only thing that I don't like is this clearance for the control arm on the spring. I think that's a common Tacoma problem on the 3rd gen at least, or maybe all Tacomas, I'm not sure. So definitely that's something I'll be looking into as a future upgrade, or whenever I swap out the suspension for actual new struts and stuff. So I went for a test drive. The truck drove fine. I couldn't tell the difference if I was driving on the spacers or if I was driving, the factory suspension, the way it's supposed to be. You can see it's definitely a little taller compared to a stock Tacoma by looking at the mirror. But the truck still looks stockish. The 32s, these are 265, 75, 16s. They're not that much bigger than the factory tire, so it kind of looks stock. You don't really see the difference when they're side by side. But at least now there should be no rubbing issues with the 32s or 33s if I decide to change a tire later on. Hopefully I change out the suspension before I end up needing new tires. From the back, let's see how they look. You could tell it's higher from the back too. Just about 2 inches, I'd say. So thanks for watching.